Hey, what's going on guys, Turtywursy here, and welcome back to another Minecraft modding tutorial for version 1.17 for Forge. In this tutorial I'm going to be covering how we can go ahead and do some ore generation. So, ore generation is pretty simple, to be honest. It's a lot simpler than it sounds. Let's just go ahead and get started, shall we? So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is go into our core package, and I'm going to create a new package in here called .world, and inside of here I'm going to create a class which is going to hold all of our ore generation related things. So I'm just going to ore generation. Okay. Get rid of that, and I guess get rid of this too. I don't know why it's generating those. Okay, now in here there's three things we want to go ahead and create straight away, and that is going to be 3 lists. So let's create public static final list, and this is going to be of configured feature. And this will take in 2 wildcard. Oh no, wait, never mind. This will take in an ore configuration. Not sure why autocomplete is not working here, but yep. And then the second one is an ore feature, and this will be the overworld underscore ores, and that would just be equal to a new array list. Okay, let's just import everything here, so java.util.list, of course. Okay, now let's copy this, and I'm going to paste it twice, and this one here will be for end ores, and this bottom one will be for nether ores. There we go. So if you only want overworld ores, of course, obviously you only need this overworld one. If you only want nether ones, you only need this nether one. Same for end, etc, etc. I'm going to add all 3, but I'm not going to create an ore for all 3. I'm just going to, yeah, I'll show you how you can add it for all 3 anyways. So then we want to go ahead and create our method, which will register the ores. So that will be a public static void register ores. Okay, and in here we need to go ahead and construct a configured feature. So what are configured features, you may be wondering? So they are basically just features with a configuration, and a feature is essentially a randomly generated structure, I guess. So ores are features, trees are features, what else are features? There's loads of features. I mean, you can just go into the feature class, make sure you go into the right course, and you'll basically see a bunch of things. So like fossils, mushrooms, you know, everything, dripstone, whatever. They are all features. They are naturally generated things, basically. And yeah, it's with a configuration. So in our case, it's an ore feature because we're creating an ore, and so it's with the ore configuration. So what we need to go ahead and do is create our feature, and this will be a configured feature. And we will make these wildcard, and I'm going to be creating well, I just want to have glowstone ore, so it will just be glowstone, but it will generate as an ore. Obviously you can use your custom ore block that you can create using the simple block tutorial, but I'm not going to be creating a special block for this because that would take a lot longer. So I'm going to just call this glowstone. I guess glowstone ore, sure. It is an ore, so, and that'll be feature.ore and then dot configured, and that will take in a new OR configuration. Okay, and in here, this is where you can basically specify the target at which it should generate. So I'm just going to use a list.of. Obviously that is an immutable list because we don't want the target to be able to change, and this will take in an OR configuration dot target, and this just takes in a rule test. So a rule test is basically a predicate for the blocks that can be accepted. So I just want to have default stone here, so I'm going to go OR configuration dot predicates dot stone or replaceables. You can see right here there are a few default predicates. So if you just want the normal ORs, basically you go stone or replaceables, and then you want to go ahead and put the block that you want it to generate. So for this predicate, I want blocks.glowstone dot default block state. Now let's say I wanted to generate my custom block instead. We can change this to block init dot example block dot get dot default block state. But obviously I'm going to use glowstone, so it would not be like that. Okay, Eclipse, stop this. It's not letting me format it, and I'm not happy about that. Here we go. No, stop. Okay, there we go. And I can just change this back to glowstone. So blocks.glowstone, not glow lichen, glowstone dot default block state. There we go. And obviously you can add to this list, so you can have a bunch of different essentially targets for this particular configuration. So let's say we also wanted a deep slate variant. We can go ahead and do OR configuration dot target, and we could say OR configuration dot predicates, and there is obviously a deep slate one, deep slate or replaceables, and here I can just put a different block if it's deep slate. So for example, blocks dot let's see, I don't know, acacia wood dot default block state, for example. And then once you have come out of there, you can see there is an integer that it needs, and that integer is basically the maximum count in a vein. So I'm going to be putting that as 11. That means the maximum size of the vein is 11. And then you need to add some special configurations to this. So we need to actually come out of this completely, and then we can do in this order. We can first do the range. So this is basically the heights that it can generate at. So there is range triangle, there is normal range, and there is range uniform. So I'm not exactly sure what the difference between all of these are, but I just know most ORs use uniform, so that's what I'm going to be using. And here you basically can specify two anchors, so two anchor points, and the first one is going to be bottom, since we want it to start at the bottom of the world, and then from there we can give it a vertical anchor dot above bottom, and we can say that it will only spawn 20 blocks above this vertical anchor of the bottom. Obviously you could also do vertical anchor dot top, and that means, I'm pretty sure that basically means, actually I have no idea what that means. This whole range stuff is very new to me. I'm not entirely certain of what it means. But essentially, for most ores, you just want to do vertical anchor dot bottom, and then you can say above bottom 20 blocks, or you can also give it an absolute value, which also works. Yeah, if anyone does manage to figure out exactly what these different range things mean and all these different vertical anchors, please do put it in the comments. I will pin you if you manage to figure out what it means. I have looked through the code. I can't quite figure out exactly what it does, but yeah, that's pretty much what you want to do. Obviously, you can go ahead and look at vanilla. So let's say I went to feature. We can see the vanilla ones. So okay, this is the wrong class, isn't it? Let's see, where is ore? And we can see where that's referenced, which is features. Of course, yes. The features class, the actual features themselves are registered and made. So we can look at, here we go, here's the ores. So you can just look at all the different ores here, and if we go along, we can see the vertical anchors right here. Some use triangle. It seems that there is obviously a prototype of each of these ones, which is probably what is going to come in 1.18, I assume, and they've just left them in here and unused. It seems that the prototypes are using range triangle. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what all of these mean. I don't even know the difference between triangle and uniform. I assume it's just the way it generates. Yeah, so you can put it between two absolute positions. As you can see here, if you're using range triangle, you can say it will be between 24 and 56. So I assume this is just the lower bound and this is basically the upper bound. That's what I assume it is. But yeah. Then after that, we need to go ahead and add dot squared. And then we need to add dot count, which is basically how many there will be per chunk. I'm going to put 100, so there will be loads of them, and basically everything will be lit up. So, what is happening here? So, you can see first we do the range, and that obviously goes ahead and does all the different y values. So, the maybe slightly confusing thing here is we actually start with the count, then we square it, then we go to the range. So in the count right here, we obviously set the positions. So this will create 100 positions in a chunk. And with those 100 positions, they will be squared. And what that means, it will randomize the x and z coordinates. So their x and z is between 0 and 15 in that chunk. And then the ranges ran and the y positions are randomized between negative 64 and 256, or whatever your range values here mean. So, yeah, after that, there is one thing we need to do, and we need to actually register it. I'm going to leave that out for a second. So, the next thing we need to do is add it to these lists right here, and it's fairly simple. So if I want it to be an overworld ore, we can do overworld ores.add, and we can just put in glowstone ore, and you'll see here that doesn't work because this is looking for a configured feature or configuration or feature. So we can't do that. We can, however, I guess make these wildcard. I'm pretty sure that works too. In fact, that's probably better. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make these wildcard. That means we don't have to do any casting here. So let's say instead we wanted this to be an end ore. We would simply just add it to the end ores. If we wanted it to be a nether ore, we add it to the nether ores. I want it to be an overworld ore. It's the simplest to test. Now, as I was saying, we need to go ahead and actually register this configured feature, and that is so it doesn't blow up when some mods try to access all the different configured features. If it's not registered, it blows their mod up. So it's highly recommended to register it. And we don't use deferred registers for this because they don't run at the right time. And if I remember correctly, it's not thread safe or something. I don't know, there was some reason other than that. But yeah, there isn't a deferred register for it. So we need to actually use the vanilla registry. So let's create a private static, and this will be, we can just call this register. Oh, and this obviously returns a configured feature. But it doesn't obviously return a configured feature, but it does return a configured feature. And this will need to take in the configuration and then the actual feature itself. So the configuration here is just going to be config, and then the feature can be wildcard. So this config here, we need to specify this, and we can use generics to do that. So we can say config extends feature configuration. Okay, and then we can go ahead and do that. Have I done this wrong? I have done this wrong because we need to put the name of the method. So register. There we go, and let's just import feature configuration. There we go. Now this is going to take in the name of the feature, and it's also going to take in the actual feature itself. So that is a configured feature, and obviously that is config and then wildcard, and that's the feature. I guess we could also just name it configured feature. It's probably a better, more descriptive name. Then in here we simply can return registry, and make sure you use the net.minecraft.core.registry.register. And just like deferred registers, this takes in the actual registry itself. So because we are using the vanilla ways, we need to use built-in registries, and then .configured feature. And then this takes in the name, which is a resource location. So we can just do a new resource location. Okay, and this will first take our mod ID. So we can go tutorial mod.mod ID, and then just the name. And finally, we just pass in the configured feature. So configured feature. Okay, there we go. This is yeah, that's fine. And we just need to call that method before we add it to the list. So actually, I think we can. Okay, what we actually can do, I think, because we are returning it right here, is we can just call register inside this add method, and do register and then the name of our feature, which I'm going to put glowstone underscore ore, and we're basically just going to be adding that to the list. That's actually a lot better, I think. Yeah, that's better. And obviously if you want to create another ore, you can just copy paste this configuration right here, and obviously change it to whatever. So beans are good. Change this name right here, of course, that is very important, to beans, and we can go, I don't know, we could go acacia leaves as the default one, and we could say blue wool. Actually, yeah, let's do this. So let's get rid of this second configuration, and instead of stone ore replaceables, I want to make this nether ore replaceables, and let's make this blue wool. Sure, why not? Let's change the count, so let's say it's only a count of 3. Let's give it an absolute. Let's do 2 absolute values here. So let's do an absolute of 10. No, let's do an absolute of, how high did the nether go? I'm not sure. Let's do an absolute of 50, and let's do an absolute of 120. I think we can do that, right? I think so. And actually, let's just go all out and make this a ranged triangle. Okay, if I could type, of course. And let's give it a count of. Actually, I'm going to keep it as a count of 100. It's just easier to find. And obviously, beans, or it's not beans, but I'm just going to name it beans because beans. I mean, you can't disagree with beans. Yeah. Now, obviously, you can create your own targets. So if you're using the end, for example, instead, and obviously we actually want to add this to the nether, not the overworld. But let's say we want to create one for the end. So, you know what, let's do that as well. Sure, whatever. And let's call this egg ore, because egg. And let's make this end ores. And egg. Okay, let's make this vertical anchor dot top, and then let's say vertical anchor dot below top 10. I don't know. Let's make it a size of 14, I guess. Let's just go 15. That's not going to work. I don't know why I did that. We're going to have to do, because the end islands are strange, aren't they? I don't know what levels they are specifically, but we can do vertical anchor dot 20, vertical anchor dot 60, I guess. And we'll go back to a range uniform. If I could type, of course. Okay, so obviously this won't work exactly how we want it to. Because we don't have a right target for this, so we need to create a predicate. So if we go into this predicates class, we can see here the different predicates. So all it does is create a tag match test, and tag match test, you can see, extends rule test. So all we need is to create a rule test, and if we open the implementation of rule test, there are a bunch of different rule tests. So the one I'm going to be using is block match test instead. So let's come into our class here, and let's go up to the top. Let's create a public static final rule test, and I'm going to call this end underscore test is equal to a new block match test, and this is simply just going to match blocks.endstone. There we go, and that means we can just use end test in here. Obviously you can use tags, so the tag test, it's better to use tags. I highly recommend using tags. It also means you can have multiple blocks, so if I wanted it to generate an obsidian pillars as well, we couldn't do that this way. We would have to create a tag for that. But yeah, okay, that is all of that. The next thing we need to go ahead and do is actually add it to the world. So this is a little more complicated. So we need to go ahead and create a subclass, and this will be a public static class. I'm going to call this the Forge Bus Subscriber. Okay, and then we need to annotate this class with @mod.eventBusSubscriber. This just takes in our mod ID, so tutorial mod.mod ID, and then it takes in the bus, which will be bus.forge. If bus wants to import, fantastic. Then we can add a @subscribe event, public static void. Now this is going to be the biome loading event, so I'm going to call this method biome loading, and then we pass in the biome loading event. Don't worry about this too much. I haven't covered events yet, so this is probably going to be a little bit confusing. I will be covering events soon, but yeah, just copy exactly what I have here and you should be fine. Inside of this biome loading method, you can just create a list of supplier of configured feature, and 2 wildcards. We can just call this features is equal to event dot get generation dot get features, and then that is decoration dot underground ores. I will explain all this in a second, don't worry. And then we just want to create a switch of event.getCategory, and let's do first case. Let's do case never. Okay, and that'll just be ore generation dot never ores dot for each ore features dot add supplier of ore. Then let's do case end, or it's actually the end. We can do ore generation dot end ores dot for each ore features dot add supplier ore. And then finally, default, we can do ore generation dot overworld ores dot for each ore features dot add supplier of ore. Okay, let's explain exactly what's happening here then, shall we? So, this biome loading event, this event will happen when all the biomes are loaded. So, more specifically, when you click create new world, it gives you the options, all of there. This is where this event is called, and it will be called for each biome in the game. Then, what we're doing is we are getting the generation settings for that biome, and we are getting the list of underground ores from this decoration stage right here, which is underground ores. Then, we are switching on the biome category. Now, essentially the biome category is how biomes are categorized. Unfortunately, we can't actually get the biome itself from this event because biomes are done in JSON now. So we can't access the actual biome, we can only access information about the biome. So let's say instead that you wanted it to be if event.getCategory is equal biome category. Let's say you only wanted it to happen in the icy biomes. You could simply do that, and then you could go features.add supplier, and you could add your specific ore. So this is where it gets a little more confusing because you have to actually go ahead and get the ore itself. But you would have a list of like icy ores, and you would go, well, you would actually probably just do a for loop like down here. So, you know, you would copy this, and instead of never ores, you would simply just do icy ores, for example. There is other information you can do stuff about. So you have like the climate, the depth of the biome, special effects, the name, which is great if you want a specific biome. You could do it based on spawns. I don't know why you would do that. You could do it based on the scale of the biome, so how large it is. You could go into generation and see the other sort of things in here. So you could do it based on structures, based on surface builder, based on all these different things. You can't know the exact biome. You can't know the dimension, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, we're relying on people putting their biomes in the correct category. It's not great, but that's all we can do. So basically, we have the never here. So if the category is never, then it will add it to the never ores. If it's the end, it adds it to the end ores, and if it's not the never or the end, then it adds it to the overworld ores. We can't filter out custom dimensions here, unfortunately. It's possible there's maybe a way to do it. I'm not sure how. I guess you could also check for the Minecraft namespace. So since you have event.getName. If you want to check that it's from the Minecraft namespace, you can go .getNamespace and obviously then .equals Minecraft. And obviously if it's that namespace, you could do, essentially you would be doing if this and event.getCategory does not equal biome category .never, and event.getCategory does not equal biome category .the end. You could do something like that and then do the overworld ores if you wanted, and that would guarantee that it's only going to be in the overworld. But it's up to you. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. At that point, I wouldn't bother with the switch statement, just make it an if. But switch statement is a bit nicer here because we can use the switch expressions, so it's only 5 lines. But yeah, now there's one more thing we need to actually go ahead and do, and we need to make sure that this register ores method is called. So let's go into our core, and in event we created this common mod events class a few episodes back in the entity tutorial, and in here we can add another subscribe event, and that can be a public static void. Now this will be the common, no, did we create the common setup somewhere else? No, we didn't. Okay, so common setup, and that is the FML common setup event. There we go. And in here we can just do event.enqueue_work. Since we want this to be able to run later, we don't want it to run at the exact time this method or this event runs. And in here we just want to register our ores. So since this wants a supplier or a runnable, we can just do ore generation : register ores. And we just need to import that. And fantastic. So that should be it for ores. Let's go ahead, let's run the game and let's see if it works. Okay, so as you can see, I am now in the game. And if I go into spectator, we can go down a little bit here, and we should be able to see, if we go down to the correct Y levels, that our glowstone starts generating. That is fantastic. And it fills up the caves a lot, of course, because we went ahead and put it to a fairly high number. I think it actually looks quite nice. Oh, and we can also see our acacia logs, which are replacing the... should be deep slate here, but I guess maybe it replaces tough as well. This is tough, right? I think. Yeah, maybe it replaces tough too, unless there is deep slate here, which actually... no, there's not. That's interesting. But I assume... oh, we actually did set it to triangle, so... yeah, there's deep slate down here. So because it's triangle, I assume that basically means it sort of doesn't all form in one clump, I'm pretty sure is how that works. Okay, well, now let's go to the nether. Beautiful. And we're in a fortress. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Pretty impressive, I would say. Now, how are we going to find this blue... ah, yep, there we go. So that is some blue wool. As you can see, it's very small veins because we only set the vein size to 3. Any more blue wool? I don't think so. Okay, let's go to the end. Oh my god, yes, it does. Wow. Yeah, so now your end is covered in gold. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty... as you can see, it does work with DY levels. I assume it's too high of a level up here. Anyways, yeah, that is pretty much it. So I hope you guys did enjoy this tutorial. If you did, please do be sure to smash your face into that like button. And, you know, you might as well subscribe as well, so that you do not miss my next videos. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.